Meeting. Now's my chance. Okay, here we go.
Don't leave the meeting. Welcome, everybody. I am thrilled to be able to be talking with Dr. Marley Jones of Harmony Neurofeedback. She's a naturopath and she specializes in brain health. And we're going to give you tricks about how you can optimize your, not just your brain, but your performance, right, Marley? This is more than just the brain. And
it affects everything in your life, for sure. It's your central processing unit to everything.
So I'm curious. I love to ask the origin story. How did you find your way into what you're doing? Usually people have interesting paths. How are you now specializing in brain health? How'd you get there?
Well, from having a very damaged and dysregulated brain for years, my story goes way, way, way back to being raised in a home with toxic mold. So I started having a lot of neuroinflammation at a very, very young age. And of course, back then, nobody knew what it was. And, then I had a series of concussions because I was an athlete. And fast forward to my early 20s, I was horseback riding my little ranch in Oklahoma and got bit by ticks. So then I contracted Lyme that went untreated, because the rheumatologist I went to said there's no reported cases of Lyme disease in the state of Oklahoma. So I did not get the medical attention that I needed, trusted that they were the expert, and then I went home and suffered. And so for for 2 decades plus, I was barely functioning because I was in chronic pain, chronic fatigue, anxiety, depression, complete overwhelm, just dog paddling, trying to keep my head above water. And in all of that, I was told by a rheumatologist early on, well, I got a lupus diagnosis too, and all of that. So lots of complicated health history with which a lot of people that have these conditions, whether it's, I've got a lot of labels. I was told I had Hashimoto's, POTS, dysautonomia, what are all the other chronic fatigue, all kinds of autoimmune things. But at the core of it all, looking back now, I just know that it's a dysregulation in the autonomic nervous system, and it involves the brain. So concussions, yes, that happened. I want to say when I was about 14, I got double bounced off a trampoline at summer camp, was having the best time ever until I landed on my head. And I was lucky I didn't break my neck. But, I went home, went to the chiropractor, dealt with the issues with pain and everything. And 6 months later, I had my first panic attack and couldn't think straight. I started having derealization and depersonalization experiences, and nobody knew what that was.
Right. Like feeling like you're kind of out of your body, not attached.
Wow. All of that, and just couldn't put a thought together. And then of course I was scared of my own shadow, and I was a hot mess from that brain injury, and then coupled with the fact that I had toxic mold exposure all of those years, I had terrible immune system function. And, you kind of navigate because you go through those things and your brain's really trying really hard to heal and to balance, and your nervous system to downregulate. But it got really hard for me after the tick bites. That was just kind of like the cascade of things hit the fan, and I blew a fuse is what I did in my brain.
Wow. Well, I wonder if I could ask you a question. I hate to interrupt because your story is so incredible, because some people may not know that that toxic mold can cause a lot of symptoms. When you were a little girl, what were those symptoms you were starting to notice? What was bubbling up for you from living in a home for that experience?
Well, I remember the day that it happened. I grew up in southern Alberta, Canada, and it was probably late spring. I was finally able to ride my bike to school. Couldn't go across that frozen lake anymore. But I remember by the time I got to school, I just felt weird. And I went to the nurse's office and I literally passed out. When I woke up, I felt like something wasn't right. But what's a fourth grader to do to try and explain that? But I ended up having like severe swelling in my lymph nodes, and then my gut health went crazy. I couldn't keep food down. They thought I was bulimic. Most fourth graders aren't bulimic, but it did develop into an anorexic type condition for me where I couldn't keep food down and I didn't want to eat. And then of course you kind of develop,
because your stomach was so not tolerating things.
it was
Like you're
so
trying to protect
messed
yourself.
up.
Yeah.
It was all messed up. And then I think too, I mean, you know, if any of your people deal with or understand, you know, just the histamine bucket being too full and your mast cells going crazy, I literally had trauma associations with not wanting to swallow, but I had swelling in my throat. You know, people that have food allergies, it so often mimics an anxiety disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and if it isn't understood properly, it becomes an anxiety disorder. Like I spoke with a client today who basically said, I get it now. I'm agoraphobic. I'm scared to get on an airplane or go to Costco because, you know, I've got these rewire associations. And I said, yes, all of that can happen, but it's because of your experience and your perception of that. Your body does go, wait, I don't feel safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you do develop somewhat of a psychiatric propensity for it.
Right. I mean, you're talking about, so for those of you who aren't familiar with the kind of full body symptoms that can happen with mold and with Lyme, really, we can be affected from head to toe.
Yeah.
And that's because, I mean, I believe, because one of the most important things that's affected is our brain. And so just to run through the list, you guys, everything from headaches, memory problems, visual trouble, swallowing difficulties, ringing in the ears, difficulty breathing, cough, joint pains, muscle aches, tummy problems. We can actually have heavier periods and issues with our clotting. And certainly anxiety and mood symptoms, depression, all flavor of issues, OCD, can manifest from biotoxin illness, and both mold and Lyme fall under that umbrella of biotoxin illness. So Marley, it's funny. I feel like just talking to you, hearing you talk, I'm putting together, connecting dots that I hadn't even totally connected. So, so you're telling us how after the onslaught of having mold exposure, Lyme, and then concussions, a lot affecting the noggin.
Yes.
Right.
Very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, and you're a naturopath, so you've gone into medicine. How did you find your way there, into what you're doing right now?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I was at the rheumatologist early on, and I was given like the lupus diagnosis, whenever, and it was, it's not Lyme disease, it's lupus. They told me at the time, whatever you do, don't get pregnant. Well, I was in my first trimester and I left his office just wrecked, right? And so I went immediately to a certified nutritionist. And then I was with her for a little while and she told me I was out of her league. And then I got with a naturopath and he became my mentor and very good friend. He's brilliant. His name is Dr. Joel Robbins, and I studied under him and he was my physician for years. And I just learned about natural hygiene, naturopathic, homeopathic, let's work along with the body. The body knows what to do if we get out of the body's way, and we can support it the best that we can. But I didn't want my kids to be me. I watched my mom and dad both suffer with very complicated health picture. Of course, they stayed in their home with toxic mold. And, they just were a different mindset than me, that what you put on your fork doesn't matter, And so I wanted to learn it for me to get well. And I also wanted my kids to learn it. And so it all started with that. And then it just kind of grew from there, because I think a lot of us end up being that hand down for others on the other side of it and sharing what we learn, and we need each other, and let your test be your testimony. And that's kind of what my life is kind of shaped out to be. I wish I wasn't the guinea pig here.
Yeah. Well, when I was sick, I was not happy about being sick.
Sure.
And now it's my greatest blessing to have been sick. I mean, I thought I had Alzheimer's. My memory was so bad. I would have, if you gave me a mocha when I was in the height of my problem, I probably would have had mild cognitive impairment. Like I would have been. So that's why, because doctors want to box you. They want to put you in a box, like one they learned about in medical school, and they're trying to help in the way they know. But I think that finding your way into natural medicine, what a beautiful, beautiful gift. And well, how did you figure out neurofeedback? Because you guys, I'm so excited. Marley is going to tell us about this incredible way to train your brain and help reset it. That I have had the amazing luck to have been using for the past month. And it has changed my life. I mean, really, in talking about like personal development, I've had things that I've put off for actually years that I have tackled and done. And I'm like, oh my gosh, why was I putting that off? Right. So tell us about your path into neurofeedback a little bit.
It's funny that you say that, Dr. Linda, because I wish, like, what would you tell your younger self? Well, 23, 24 years ago, I would have said, start with healing your brain. I mean, I went to tons of practitioners and all, even, conventional medicine. I did both. I was desperate to feel better. I'd done all kinds of energy medicine work, etc. But I want to say that just before COVID, I went down a little rabbit hole with Amen University, and I started to look a little bit more into just brain health and brain recovery. And I love Dr. Daniel Amen's mission to end mental illness. And so after I'd gone through that training, I realized it wasn't too late for me, and it was probably a good idea. And if I could have told my younger self, before you spend your money on anything else, I mean, whether it's the world's best supplements and most purest organic food and whatever it is, all those things are important. But if you're going to put your money anywhere, work on rehabbing your brain. And it's not the cheapest thing, but it's something that you're going to use the rest of your life. And I learned about this particular biohack technology. It's beyond a biohack to me, but about 3.5 years ago, and it's been around for much longer than that, but they've continued to improve it. But, I had known about neurofeedback because if you've been chronically ill long enough and you're always looking, or you're studying, if you're reading books on trauma or anything with chronic pain, fatigue, and anxiety and depression, you've probably ran across biofeedback and EEG biofeedback, which is neurofeedback. But I learned about the Neurooptimal program probably, 3-4 years ago. And I'd look at it and I'd be like, yeah, there's so many different little things out there and they're so expensive. How do you know if it works? And then I put it on a shelf, and then it would come back through, and I'd pick it up again. I'd look at it, and then I'd put it on a shelf because it was expensive. And at that time, after I had gone through all the training with Amen Clinics, I did a big series of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which was also very helpful for me. There's also good and bad hyperbaric situations, ones that, I would say, yeah, it's worth the money, and others that not so much. Better than nothing, but not optimal. So what I loved about learning about neurooptimal neurofeedback is it's for the end user. There's no protocols, there's no practitioners, there's no mistakes, there's no side effects. And you will continue as you brain train to optimize the brain that you have. It's like riding a bike and reading a book. You don't forget how, you continue to optimize and get better, because once the brain sees what's going on and it knows how to self-correct, the body knows how to heal. But once it has the opportunity to see what's just dysregulated or off or out of balance, it knows what to do.
It's like a mirror.
It's a mirror inside your head.
That's so neat. I mean, because it does seem like when the sessions are very relaxing, and I'm like, how can this be? Because you can only do a couple times a day. And I'm like, how can this be? And then after, I guess that I felt a difference in my productivity, and I was say, oh, I rented it for a month, you guys. That's what I did. And so I've been using it every day. And after a week was when there was just a big shift.
You felt a shift,
like,
yeah.
Is this my college? I mean, because I know that our brains are not as fast as they were in college, and I want her back.
Yes.
So I'm like, this feels more like my college brain. Not that multitasking is great, but I do tend to multitask. And it was so exciting to feel like I could actually tick off the to-do list in a way I have not been able to do before, to allow for me time. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest gifts, is that when we're more productive in our, in doing our thing, we have more time to, sort of tend to ourselves and breathe.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by maybe multitasking not being great, because you're not focused on in the moment? Because it can be a good thing too. What do you mean by that?
Well, so what I mean is keeping a lot of balls in the air. Like when
just overtaxing.
When I'm on the computer, I am a multi-window person. And so while something is uploading, I'm going to something else. I'm doing another project, I'm editing another video, and or I'm thinking about, okay, the next I have to call this person. And so it's keeping all of the ducks in a row and everybody moving towards the pond, I guess. Right. And then thinking about, okay, I got to pick up the kids. And so multitasking. Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Right. Well, the thing about it is, it's like your focus becomes sharper, like your perspective, the lens shifts. There's so many different analogies that I can think of that Neurooptimal allows for. But what it's doing is just interrupting different cortical activity that doesn't serve you, because your brain is designed to move away from discomfort. And so whenever you're on a training and things get a little bit out of range, it's like the rumble strips on the side of the highway. Have you heard that analogy about how that works?
Yeah, I love that. But tell it. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you're on a Neurooptimal brain training sessions, it's really sweet. The sweet spot, 33 minutes, nice spa-like music. You've got your birds chirping and the crackling fire and the water trickling. I say that doing a session with Neurooptimal is like going to the gym and the spa at the same time, because you're training your brain, but it's so passive, and it's the lazy person's brain training and trauma healing and self-organization and all of that stuff that happens. But what's happening is, it's like the rumble strip analogy is, if you're going to be driving on the interstate and you veer off course, that little rumble strip buzzes and it gets your attention. It doesn't force you back into your lane. If you want to hit the ditch, you can hit the ditch, but it calls it to your attention. It allows you to decide, I'm going to fix this. This isn't doing well for me. So that's what it does. It just gets you back on course. It interrupts certain cortical activity that doesn't serve you. And what it's doing is allowing your brain to become more flexible and more resilient. And what is so beautiful, like the shifts you talk about, is it continues to increase your window of tolerance to stress and stressors. And it's such a beautiful process.
I love it. And so when the music stops, because it does sometimes, that's like the big rumble strip, right? Yeah. Pulling me back in. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Well, yeah, I think that, offering it to people, to have this tool to give to people as they're trying to reset, before I found neurofeedback, and this is my first real experience with it. And I love it. But before that, with people with mold, I would say, do dynamic neural retraining system, Annie Hopper to help.
I did all that too. Mhm.
Yep, the GUPTA program, and these are
Same.
still useful.
Mhm.
However, I feel like that takes a lot of time and effort. And this
You
is
have to know how to focus. And, I got to tell you, when I did DNRS, you have to stand to do your rounds. And my POTS was so bad, I couldn't stand.
right.
And then when you have to get into the zone of trying to like access the higher self and what you want to be, I fell asleep. So I had a very difficult time with it. The concepts of it, and if your brain is very dysregulated as mine was, it's very, very hard to do. Now, I learned from it. There were things that I've taken with it, but I have to tell you that if I had a do-over, I would have just started with Neuroptimal because it is the easiest way to train your brain. And it's all happening on a non-cognitive level that you don't have to focus. Whereas DNRS and Gupta, you have to focus. And that's really hard for people with brain injuries or just such that are traumatized or have such nervous system dysregulation.
Especially young people, young kids. Oh
Oh,
God.
sure.
Well,
Mhm.
talking about this, because both, it sounds like both you and I treat mold and Lyme and people.
Mhm.
And whereas for if I couldn't see somebody for in a while, I would be like, well, go check out Annie Hopper or the GUPTA program. But
Mhm.
now, change of practice, I would say check out neurofeedback. And I love this particular way because you can find a practitioner and rent the unit. You
Mhm.
can do it from at home, and that's
You can
what
buy
makes,
your own, which is ultimately, I mean, they are expensive, but I got to tell you,
what's a good investment.
every family needs access to a neurooptimal technology of some sort, whether you find a trainer in your local area or like you said, you get with somebody who can rent them. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you can continue to optimize, and it just makes sense to buy your own.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, I mean, the machines are 10,000 US dollars. They make them in Quebec, Canada, and it's a family run company. And they really don't market. It's a very word of mouth type of situation. And it's one of those things, like I said, I put it on the shelf because I'd spent, you don't want to know how much money you spend when you have
On
Lyme
healing,
disease for
right?
20 years on trying to feel better.
Right.
But it is hands down the best investment I've ever made in myself. But I want to tell you, it's so much more even beyond when you're chronically ill. It affects every area of your life. It affects you physically, mentally, emotionally, financially. You can't work. You run into doctor appointments. Most of those doctor appointments aren't covered by insurance. And just relationally, I am so blessed to have the husband that I do, because when we first got married, I made a lot more money than he did. But soon into it, horseback riding in Oklahoma, got bit by ticks and triggered. I was bedbound for many, many years, just barely functioning. So those types of relationships and financial struggles, and I mean, you hurt. You don't want anybody touching you. You're
Right.
not happy. You're like a grizzly bear with a toothache all the time when you feel that way. And it tanks every area of your life when you have a chronic illness.
Yeah.
And what is the baseline that it all comes back to? That if your brain does not work right, your life does not work right. So let's look at brain rehabilitation and brain health and brain optimization.
I love it. Well, and so the other, I also practice with various kinds of energetics, using microcurrent.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Woo, FSM.
Yeah.
Using, pulse electromagnetic fields and that kind of thing. And then the sticker, you see both Dr. Marley and I are wearing these stickers. These are something with my SIRS Lyme mold clients. They can be a breakthrough also, because they can help with resetting the brain. I'm going to show you guys a little image from a study about how this can shift brain balance. And this is someone who'd been using one of these little phototherapy. They don't give any medicines, just phototherapy stickers. This was this is an EEG brain mapping system, a 19-channel EEG. And looking at that first session, what you're really seeing is imbalance, basically. And then the following two, this last one is at 6 weeks, improvement in basically the brain balance. And when we look at the mapping here, this is how you go from an angry brain to a brain. And I'm sure that in that with neurofeedback, something like this is also happening. But that's why, while I haven't had neurofeedback to share with people before, using the stickers can be helpful for people, because these stickers increase a compound in the body that turns on younger genes and activates stem cells. When we activate those stem cells, people tap into their body's own ability to heal. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, all self-healing.
Yes, that's what we want.
Very complimentary. And I have to tell you, just so that the people who watch, you didn't tell me to wear this today. I just happened to hurt my shoulder a couple of days ago because I've torn both rotator cuffs, and I did a little something that was outside my range of motion again, and too much weight. And I thought, oh yeah, Dr. Linda sent me those patches. I'm going to wear one. I got to tell you, doing better.
It's really interesting what can change, and quickly too. Now, if somebody does decide to use the patches, and if you have mold or Lyme and you're super sensitive, we might start with the anti-inflammatory patch. There's one patch that's anti-inflammatory, because sometimes what's happening in the body with mold and Lyme is that processes that should be working are turned off. Yeah. And this turns processes back on, right? In a good way. And so it's at times I'll have people who are sensitive begin it slowly, like maybe start with 6 hours. And while they're single-use patches, for those people, I say, well, when you're beginning, take it off after 6 hours and put it in a plastic wrap. Life will probably not want me to say this, but put it in a plastic baggie in a dark place, and then the next day just wear that same one again. It's going to have less juice because they are single use. But that way it's sort of a gentle ease on. We want to get to where we're wearing it all day and taking it off at night. But I've had people have big breakthroughs when it takes time, but it's exciting to see.
Little shifts on that too, huh? Yeah.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I love that.
This has been an amazing interview, and I'm so excited I'd like to talk again about other things, and we could talk about microcurrent.
Sure.
So you guys, you can expect Dr. Marley to be coming back. And what I'll do is, I think, say goodbye. You guys can find Dr. Marley at harmonyneurofeedback.com, right? Yeah. So she's in Florida, but you do send rental units throughout the country, or are you mostly just sharing locally?
Well, I have a wait list locally. I do have a machine in Minnesota that's on its way back. That just was a very special circumstance for somebody. And
for Florida natives, and that's where
but I am well connected. I will get you a machine, and I'll get you it with the most support and the best price. Trainers are supposed to charge about the same. They usually rent for about $1,000 a month. It is better to have somebody a little bit closer to you, because just with the cost of fuel and everything, UPS, FedEx, expensive. And on a $10,000 machine, you want to make sure that it's insured. But, ultimately it's something to look into for your family, your neighborhood, whether it's your parish or your church or your community center. If you're a chiropractor, a massage therapist. I've got a lady coming in from Illinois this next week. She's a medical massage therapist, the only one in the Chicago area. And she's tired because her hands and everything. And she's all of her health picture too. She's like, I need to pivot. I need to pivot what I'm offering for people, and I'm gonna offer NeuroOptimal. So she's coming in, and I'm gonna get her certified. I'm offering certification, basic certification. If you want to come, Linda, come to Melbourne. And that'll be April 14th and 15th. And it's a 2-day training. And we're going to do just live interaction. We'll be hands-on training, learning the ins and outs of NeuroOptimal, how it works, how you can implement it into your, your personal life, but even into your business practice as well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I've been with 3 kids, right? So I've been like sticking it on my children, getting them set up. I'm like, okay, while they're like playing a video game or something, right?
No, you talk about multitasking. Absolutely. I mean, I was running a session right before we got on the phone together, because whatever it takes to train, as long as you can hear that audio track, it's working. So if you're responding to emails or reading a book or taking a nap, the train is working. So the goal is to train and train some more.
Oh, wow. Well, so send me some information about your training. And what we'll do is we're going to say goodbye to YouTube and hang on with me so we can talk some more. All right.
Okay.